Recently, there was a big community poll on the Warrior Cats website. It asked about how much money we were willing to spend on cats, what sort of apps we play, and used the terms superfan and entertainment brands, which I don't think anyone understood. But additionally, it had a section where it asked for cats we want books about, which got me thinking, what do I want to read? Had this question been asked like 2 years ago, my answer would have been an immediate Squirrel Flight and nothing else, but we've got a Squirrel Flight Super Edition now. There's a couple things that I think we're lacking in, but also things that I would just enjoy. So the categories for characters I want books of go as follows. 1, we need more of this. 2, I feel like this could be an interesting story to tell here. And 3, I just like this character and I think it would be fun to see them do something. I should mention that all of these, unless stated otherwise, are storylines I want to take place independently of the main book series, not as tied-in storylines. And oh my god, Pepper, what? Pepper? You trying to be in a YouTube video? Okay. I should mention that all of these, unless stated otherwise, are storylines that I want to take place independently of the main books, not as tied-in storylines. As much as I enjoy the tie-ins like Hawkwing's Journey, I don't really think that shoving unrelated stories and unrelated characters between the lines is properly utilizing the space we have. Anyways, so my first entry in the We Need More of This category is Starflower. What do we need more of? Dawn of the Clans. You can do anything and tell nearly any story you want to in Dawn of the Clans, and I feel like Starflower is the most interesting, untouched character. Going forward from pretty much the latest point in which Dawn of the Clans left off, we can basically do anything. I just think it should be a rule that they're never allowed to write a Dawn of the Clans book about a tomcat ever again. And for this, I'm pretty serious about it being a super edition. I don't care what Starflower does, but I hope she commits a murder. And also contributes nothing to the Warrior Code. Second, we've got Cloverfoot. She's a deputy character, and she's likely never going to be leader, but 3 out of the other 4 deputies have had some sort of singular focus, and she's a lot younger than Reed Whisker. I just want to know what she's about, and honestly, I could care less about what Reed Whisker is about. I get it, you have thick whiskers or something, and Novella would be fine in this situation. I guess I could always go read this fanfiction about ShadowClan cats that I've been meaning to read for like 5 months. You should all go read this fanfiction about ShadowClan cats and then tell me how it was. And third in more of this is any kitty pet. I understand, sure, Firestar was a kitty pet, Leafstar was a kitty pet, but I want a kitty pet who stays a kitty pet. I want to know what kitty pets believe, what kitty pets think, what kitty pet afterlife is, how they consider things like relationships and conflict. I don't want them to join a clans, I want them to stay a kitty pet and show us the different perspective on the Warrior Cat universe. The cats I would want most for this are either Minty or Velvet. I like how much of a baby Minty is, and I think Velvet's cute. I'm all for some sort of meek loser kitty pet protagonist, someone completely different from clan cats, a coward, and a novella would be fine here. And next, Willowshine, who is half this category and half the next category. I don't need her because she's a medicine cat. Honestly, we have too many medicine cat protagonists nowadays anyways. But because she's not only a River Clan cat, a clan we have scarcely spent any time with at all, but because she's had to fill the full spiritual role for her clan ever since she was an apprentice. That said, I want this one to take place either in a period of time where Mothwing is missing, like right now, or after she dies horribly sacrificing herself when Reed Whisker turns evil in Reed Whisker's Renaissance. Again, a novella is fine for Willowshine. When it comes to cats I feel like have something to offer, I feel like Heathertail would be a good choice. I want more of her perspective on her relationships with both the Crowfeather brothers and how she matures into an adult. Unlike other stories, I would really want this one to take place in the past, but I doubt that would happen. Crowfeather's trial tried to cover these kinds of bases on some level, and took up the time I would have wanted for Heathertail, but what's going on in your head, Cat? I just want to know what you're thinking. Sure, we had Lionblaze angst forever about breaking the code and Dream killing Heatherpaw over and over again, but Heatherpaw did all of the bad things he did, and even ended up being the one pushed away. Heathertail is a cat who went through that rejection on top of the guilt she had for doing something wrong. What's up, Heathertail? Are you suffering over there? And how did you come to like breeze pelts? Another I think has something to offer, or more so another 3 that I think have something to offer, are Moon, Leaf, and Squirrel from the sisters. These are kittens Moonlight has at the end of Squirrelflight's Hope, named after their dead mother, dead Leafpool, and at the time, presumed dead Squirrelflight. I know that we had a sister's perspective back in Tree's roots, but not for the reason I want one. Tree's circumstances within the sisters are unique. He cannot even see the ghosts that are intended to mentor him, and he's largely disconnected with the spiritual abilities of his bloodline until he's an adult. Ideally, what I would want out of a book about his half-siblings would be a book more heavily focused on the spiritual aspects of the sisters, alongside having characters from within them naturally question their beliefs and practices as a culture from the inside. The way I see it, the sisters, and the clans, are a lot like a cult, but the sisters are a much smaller situation than the clans. There's only a handful of them, and they're probably more malleable for that reason. I would want to explore the younger members of the sisters calling into question their way of life, how they treat the tomcats, and especially considering they spent their first moon or two of life living among the clans where those practices didn't exist. I would want to introduce siblings that were closer than Tree and his sister, who wouldn't be willing to let each other go. And the thing that's so interesting about the sisters is that their religion is real, just like the religion of the warriors. But how much of their behavior is justified? How much of their tradition is necessary and not coincidence? I want to see what else can be done with them, but not in a clan cats come and fix them sort of way. I want someone from the inside to realize that they are doing something wrong and to do something about it. While I'd love a super edition here, they'd probably fill it with a lot of wholly unnecessary conflict, like having an animal attacking them or kitty pets driving them out instead of that emotional struggle that I want. So, who knows, I wouldn't even mind it if it were a super edition broke up into perspectives like a main series book. And lastly, in my something to offer section, it's Ashfur. I don't know if I even have to explain myself. I want a book from the perspective of a dead StarClan Ashfur, figuring himself out and ultimately crumbling into the state where he goes down to Earth to possess Bramblestar. I want to know how he got into StarClan, and if you can even trick StarClan cats, or even if that's what he had done. Also, a book that takes place in StarClan entirely, super hecking interesting, and an opportunity to use a lot of those characters that are long dead. It's also something I'd want as a super edition just because there's no outside threat. There's no traveling to be had in a StarClan Super Edition. You can't stop making that about character conflict and start making it about badgers. And that's really what's so interesting about it to me. The idea of Ashfur having a conversation with, say, Sandstorm or Firestar. Ashfur sits down and talks to Firestar. Does Firestar know that Ashfur killed him? Sitting right here next to him in StarClan. I mean, Ashfur didn't kill him all the way, but he killed him once. Someone must have seen Ashfur do that. Someone from StarClan must be aware that that happened, and yet you are sharing a space with your attempted murderer. I mean, I'd also like to see this conversation between, like, say, Mudclaw and Tallstar, because oh, geez, I can't imagine Mudclaw getting to heaven and looking at Tallstar and going, huh, well, I messed up, didn't I? Oh, why did they let Mudclaw in heaven? And now my final section. Cats I just like, so I want to read books about them for that selfish reason alone. First off is Minnowtail. I like Minnowtail. She's one of those chubby, pretty cats over in StarClan, RiverClan. She's alive. She's still alive. That everybody's gossiping about. Who are you, Minnowtail? Why do you keep implying that you're attractive in early power of 3 and then never do anything with yourself? Your name is cute, also. I'd read your book. Second, I have Poppyfrost. Poppyfrost is a very serious cat when it comes to her duties, but when it comes to personal relationships, she just kind of falls apart. I like her personality, and I like how she frets over things. I'm not really sure if a story about her would end up doing this version of her in my head justice, but I'd like to see how it turns out. Also, now that Berrynose is dead, she's finally free. For either of these two cats, a novella would really be fine. I'm not really seeing them having much content for them. Obviously, you could make up anything happening, but I just like the cats, so it's not really a, oh yeah, I really need a book about Poppyfrost situation, because it's not like Poppyfrost has unresolved emotional conflict, unless it's with Jayfeather or something. I don't think that Poppyfrost really has anything that she needs to do, or anything that wasn't perfectly resolved in the first Omen of the Stars books. So Poppyfrost she's not really someone who can go anywhere. Minnowtail obviously is such a background character that you could take her, you could make her leader, you could make her anything you wanted. Yeah, actually make her leader. Hello, Aaron Hunter. My name is Moon Kitty Jones, and I was wondering, could you make Minnowtail the next leader of RiverClan? No, I don't have a good reason, but I do not like Reed Whisker. His whiskers are making me uncomfortable. And to finish off everything, I could really go for an adventure from the perspective of cats that we don't know about, set in the time periods completely disconnected from current-day warrior cats. Cats who live in the future a few decades from now with barely any hints of the clans today, or maybe cats who live in the middle ground between Clear Sky and Mapleshade, with no visible ancestors or descendants, or at the very least, extremely distant ones. Reusing guidebook allegiances might be fine, but what I want is a story where we don't need to worry about who's living or dying. Where we can be truly invested and mystified by what the outcome is going to be. A true Warrior Cats soft reboot.